Hey, what's going on everybody out there? I'm Jakejames Lugo and welcome to the channel. And it's amazing to me how in such a short time span that something could prove my point almost to a T. What we're going to talk about in this vlog today was something I touched on not too long ago in one of my previous vlogs. There'll be links in the description box below or annotations here on the video and such. But again, it's just amazing to me how this is still a thing even now in 2017. Granted, there's a lot of discussions to be had about the gaming industry, about video game criticism, about outlets big and small. It's just crazy to me that we keep going back to the exact same thing with us here in the gaming community. Not just as far as the media people, but just everybody in there. Consumers, critics, people that are on YouTube, people on Twitch, streaming, or a whole bunch of different places. But we keep going back to the exact same stuff that I just commented on not too long ago. But anyway, let's get right into it. And you know, this is a video response to VideoGameDunkey that just put up a video not too long ago about game critics and why he doesn't like game critics and such. There'll be links in the description box below to the video itself. That way you guys could get some context to what I'm talking about. I got a whole bunch of points here that I listed right here on my computer that I'm going to touch on because there's just so many things that I not only take a little bit of issue with, but I fundamentally disagree with because I feel like it's not being genuine and it's not being, giving due diligence to both sides of the equation here. As someone that's both as a YouTuber here on YouTube, again on this channel, that does vlogs about gaming and such, but also does video game reviews as a professional, as someone that actually writes about games, who does guides and different types of stuff for both big and small websites, I feel like I have a grand overview and a much better perspective on a lot of stuff involving these discussions than what somebody might just have just looking at it from the YouTuber perspective that's just uploading to their channel. Now, this isn't to put down anybody, this isn't to put down Dunkey himself, but let's go through some of these different things that I want to discuss on as far as like points that he brought up in his video. Again, if you haven't seen it already, again, there's links in the description box below, but if you just want to kind of get to the meat and the potatoes of everything here, let's just dive right into it. So, one of my biggest problems that I keep going back to, that I've said in my previous vlog, and I'll say it again because at least in that vlog it was touching on more with the GameSpot review of Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, is that so many people, including Dunkey himself, just tries to demonize one entire outlet, or just an entire outlet, or just all of the games media as a whole for the opinions of one person. It's crazy how we keep going back to this exact same thing. It's like talking to a child, where it's like, listen, that's just one person's opinion. How are you going to demonize and put that whole weight on everybody that's at that particular outlet just because of that one person's review that you fundamentally disagree with? It's not that everybody at the outlet has that same opinion. It's just one person that just wrote that one review. And this is the thing that kind of keeps coming up in his video, and he really kind of picks on IGN here. And I understand it, and I really believe it's not just to make a point. I think it's also to get a rise out of everybody and kind of jump on the fad that it's okay to hate on IGN because they're probably the biggest outlet in our industry right now. Again, full disclosure, I've written stuff for IGN before, I've written guides for them before. Again, links in the description box below if you really just want to look at all that stuff. I'm not apologetic and I'm not secretive about any of the stuff that I've done. And I'm going to get to why in just a bit. But the thing is like he's picking on this outlet, okay, or just picking on IGN or just bigger outlets in general, just on the simple fact that it's the in thing amongst a lot of people for whatever reason to hate on the bigger outlets. It's not because they're doing anything specifically wrong. There's always these different arguments that he points out in his video and a lot of other people throw out there on the internet and forums and tweets and all other forms of social media, that just because a particular person from a bigger outlet has an opinion, immediately either they're paid off, they just didn't like the game, they want to have like some sort of vendetta against a particular publisher or the developers. There's all these different crazy reasons that have no kind of like basis to them. And everybody just keeps going right back to them, and yet we still haven't moved on beyond it. It's just crazy to me. One of the points that I have here is, again, there's always this idea of us versus them. It's this new media versus old media. We've seen this over the last few years, especially ever since the whole ordeal with Gamergate, and everybody kept going back to that for like the longest time. But it always goes back to this us versus them mentality. It's like everybody wants to bundle up in a group. Everybody wants to hate on a particular outlet because they feel like they were vexed. Okay, using the word vexed here to kind of like really illustrate a point that one particular person representing an outlet just didn't like their game and gave their honest opinion about it. They were chosen to write about the game and give their thoughts and opinions and stance and perspective on it. And automatically, that's indicative of the entire outlet. That's indicative of the fall of old media. All of a sudden, I never liked that type of mentality. I never liked that type of thinking because I always felt that it was very destructive, it was very divisive amongst a lot of people, and it never really kind of started a discussion. It never really gave the ability for everybody just to discuss games as a whole. Immediately, everybody gets mad at Callie Plagey or at IGN because she said in one of her reviews for, I believe it's Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, because there was too much water, quote unquote. That's what everybody goes back to with that particular outlet, or at least that particular review. The point that she was trying to make is that the whole game is designed to use surf, and again, getting around the entire area that's within the game, using the ability to surf. There's all this water, like watery kind of like themed areas around it. That's what she was trying to make, the point with it. At least she written that out, okay, in her actual review. My point is this. It's like all those different people, not just Dunkey, but in a lot of other different places on YouTube and social media, always want to cherry pick different things to turn it into an us versus them mentality. And that should not be the case. If anything, both people that consider themselves new media and people that consider themselves old media should really be trying to come together and work together on stuff. Not only to start up a discussion, but to make better content on both sides. I don't see a lot of people, granted there are on both sides of the equation, but I don't see a lot of people that consider themselves old media or people that are part of bigger websites or even medium and smaller sized websites that aren't necessarily people uploading to YouTube and streaming games on Twitch or wherever else have you, really taking shots at the other side. It's always on the flip side back to the old media. It's new media versus old media because it seems like that's the in thing amongst their audiences. It's the in thing amongst people in the comments section. It's the in thing amongst people that are just so upset at one particular outlet or many particular outlets for their own opinions that are being put out there, that's their way of getting back at them. And that should not be the case. That shouldn't be the case with anybody, especially with a channel that has over 3 million subscribers. Not only do I feel like you should know better, but I feel like you should have a better perspective, not only with a wider, diverse range of people that are your audience, that are your following and stuff, but also feel like you should try to do better for them. You should actually try to give them better information, actually look at things in a complete whole as like a full scope of stuff, and not just because you feel like one particular person is wrong, that automatically because of their particular points, that you're better than that entire outlet, that you're better than that individual, and that everybody should pay attention to your stuff simply because you're throwing insults at the other side. That's totally wrong and totally messed up. And again, we keep going back to that constantly. It's never really been solved. It's like everybody in the gaming community, not just people that are working in the industry, but people that are just general consumers or people that go online on forums with the internet, quote unquote, the internet itself, are just never going to get over that, or just never going to move past that, or never going to really evolve or just mature enough to kind of keep the conversation going in a much better direction. It's always got to be shouting matches on both sides and hurling insults, and it's stupid to me. Okay. Now, there's a couple other stuff that I want to throw in here, like some things that he just got wrong in his video and I feel like was really disingenuous with the way that it was being presented. One of the things that he showed was their IGN's outlook on Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't think a lot of people over at IGN really like Sonic the Hedgehog for a variety of different reasons. That doesn't mean to say that everybody over there really hates that franchise. Pretty sure there's a couple people, at least maybe 3, 4, 5 people in there that actually like Sonic for one reason or another. But the way it's always presented, not just in Dunkey's video, but with a lot of other people's videos, is that IGN as an outlet has a vendetta against that franchise. And I don't think that's the case. One of the things I really thought was disingenuous was that he was showing Damon Hatfield actually narrating over a Sonic the Hedgehog 4 episode 1 review, and then later on in a Game Scoop, where it's that infamous Game Scoop episode that people always point to saying that this is why IGN hates Sonic the Hedgehog, because all of them are talking about it. But I think just individually as a person, Damon just never really liked Sonic the Hedgehog. But on top of that, what really seems to be lost on people is that Damon and a bunch of those other personalities at that website narrate the video versions of some of the reviews that other people write. So just because one person liked Sonic the Hedgehog and they wrote it, doesn't necessarily mean that that was Damon that actually wrote that review. How do I know? I actually went and I looked at the original review, not just the video. I looked at the written one, because I've gone through this process myself in the past. With my review that I did on IGN, I did it for Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 4. Again, links in the description box if you actually want to see it. When I did the video version of that review, I actually narrated it because I wanted to go through that process. I wanted to kind of experience it and actually really put my all into that review. But that isn't always the case with everybody. There's one reason or another why that might not be possible. So that's why they get some of their personalities over there, some of their employees, some of the full-time people that work at that outlet to narrate on the video versions of those reviews. It'll say on the bottom there, narrated by such and such, but written by such and such. It's not always that particular person that's saying the words that it's necessarily their review. Now, That's not an excuse whatsoever for whatever it is or whatever opinion that outlet, IGN or otherwise, has on a particular game. But I do think it's kind of messed up that this is another thing that everybody keeps going back to without any kind of like founded information that's really solid or really kind of like reasoning behind it. It's just that they feel like they just don't like the opinions of that particular outlet on Sonic the Hedgehog, so it's like they're cherry picking all these little things. All of a sudden, again, to go back to that us versus them mentality, to show reasons why they're not legitimate, despite them being the biggest outlet in the industry and actually being around for such a long time, doing the exact same thing that they've always been doing. But now because one person with either a 3 million subscriber account or otherwise, because they're on YouTube, because they feel like they're doing things differently, automatically that invalidates everybody's opinions, plain and simple, because it's your opinion, you disagree with everybody. I'm not down with that mentality. I think it's wrong. I think it's very divisive. It doesn't start a conversation. It really just causes people just to be on opposing sides and just for no apparent reason. Literally, that's it. There's no apparent reason. There's always going to be bad people on both sides, like I keep saying. There's always going to be people on different types of extremes that do one thing or another that you're not always going to agree with. While I kind of consider myself as, like, again, a games media person, a games critic that isn't really necessarily a YouTuber, I still understand both sides of the equation. I've done and dabbled in both, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people over there have as well. And with me personally, I'm always down with actually starting those conversations, learning from the opposite side, and actually trying to make better content and make better stuff overall with me as an individual. I'm not trying to throw mud, fling vegetables, and really stick it to the other side for that matter. It's just stupid to me, and I really don't get why is it that some of these bigger channels or some of these individuals with huge channels and huge followings want to kind of perpetuate that. I'll really tell you what it is. It's really about people just getting views. That's just what it always comes back to, especially with people on the YouTube side and on the Twitch streaming side, because that's what gets a rise out of people. It's just, again, that's just something I've noticed over the years, and there's no other reason for it, okay? If there is, put it in the comment section below, explain it to me, because I keep seeing the same reasons thrown out there because, oh, they're not legitimate enough, oh, they're not being diligent to their audiences, they're not being genuine with the way that they present their opinions, they're bigger outlets so they should know better, or they're getting paid off and stuff, which we're going to address in just a bit again, but still, it's just insane to me how everybody gets caught up on the exact same stuff. So there's a couple other things I want to touch on. You know, one of the other things that I find weird is that he brings up this, what is it? He brings up these reasonings for this other movie critic. Okay, I'm trying to show it, Armand White, that he uses in, Dunkey uses in his video. Okay, comparing some of the reviews over at IGN and other bigger outlets like, again, Kotaku, Polygon, GameSpot, etc. Someone like Armand White. Now, Armand White, if you don't know who that is, that's a movie critic that actually does these crazy reviews where he has a lot of these outlandish opinions, and while he has supporting info to kind of like back up his claims, quote unquote, it really doesn't fall in the category of being really credible in a lot of circles that, again, review movies or critics of film, and it just, again, a lot of those people out there that put out content related to movies. The reason being is because a lot of his stuff and a lot of his reasoning is a little bit flawed. Or again, a lot of his rationale is really all over the place. This is a guy that's come out and said that Man of Steel was the godfather of superhero movies. Now, while that might be an opinion, you don't always have to agree with someone's opinion. He is entitled to his opinion, and it's allowed to live out there in the ether. But the thing is, though, is that why people don't find his opinions really credible is, again, his rationale is just all over the place and very flawed in the grand hindsight of stuff. My problem is that he's trying to compare that type of logic and that type of stuff that Armand White does with IGN and trying to say, like, this is what IGN really does with their reviews, which isn't the case. And I know this personally because I've done a review for IGN. I know what type of creative process that they go through when it comes to actually coming up with a score, really looking at a review objectively and giving some sort of, feeling and giving some sort of emotion about how they feel about a game based off of those objective facts when you actually play the game like that. Again, if you guys don't know who Dan Stapleton is, Dan Stapleton is one of the reviews editors over at IGN. He's the one that really oversees a lot of the reviews that get published on the website and assigns different people to review different games and stuff. He is probably one of the best processes when it comes to, or at least blueprints and guidelines to actually reviewing a game. More so in my personal opinion, again, my personal opinion, not fact, when it comes to reviewing games out there in the games media. I feel like it's the most diligent, it does the most for the audience, it does the most with covering all aspects of the games that are out there without really getting caught up on hyperbole, which is what I find a lot of different reviews tend to do. Not just on games media side of things and old media, but also on YouTube and also on new media side of things. Again, streaming, wherever else you want to consider new media. It's just, I feel like that's the best process for it. And having gone through that and having known about that, I can't agree with someone saying that all of a sudden all those reviews that IGN puts out there, especially the ones when he was pointing out about Call of Duty, tend to be very hyperbolic or have to have one reason or another why they are that particular score, other than the actual quality of the game themselves and what that person was getting from the game when they were actually experiencing it. Again, going back to every single one of these cherry-picked reasons of why IGN specifically or bigger games media outlets are wrong in what they're doing and why they should go over to these new media people. Again, it's not an us versus them. I want to make that very clear. Even though I'm talking about both sides, it's not an us versus them. But I think it's wrong and disingenuous to use those reasons, or at least come up with those types of reasons for why one side is completely wrong without any legitimate criticism about them. Okay? It's just crazy to me. So again, couple more stuff I want to touch on, because I know this is going a little bit long, but really the main big kind of like overview argument, overview case I want to make here in this response vlog, or at least this vlog where I'm discussing all this, again, crazily enough, is that people are allowed to have different opinions. People are allowed to have different stances on video games, and that applies to every single entertainment medium out there. Games, movies, music, art, comics, whatever else you want to consider, okay? When I say art, I'm talking about like traditional art, like paintings, sculpture, etc. The list goes on and on. There's nothing wrong with having a different opinion. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing with someone. There's nothing wrong with coming to a conclusion that's different than another person out there, or another individual, or another entity, another outlet out there. But what I think is wrong is to condescend other outlets, or condescend a specific outlet or a specific person for having that opinion when, again, you're only basing that solely on the fact that their opinion is different than yours. And that's what I'm seeing not only from Dunkey's video, VideoGameDunkey's video here and now, but I'm seeing that from a lot of different places, not just on YouTube, not just on Twitch, and again, other streaming services, but all over the place. And this really needs to stop. This is the same thing that I was saying in my last vlog. I'm going to say it again here. This whole unfair perspective on games media, or just the industry as a whole, especially those that are professionals out there, really needs to stop. It just seems like a lot of people are getting caught up on the hyperbole of feeling different about how they feel about specific games, and because the other people are saying something different and completely on a different wavelength than them, that automatically they're wrong and they should be ostracized, they're not credible, this and that. It's just stupid to me, and we really need to outgrow this, and not only just as a gaming community, but also as an industry as a whole. I don't, personally for me, again, as someone that is games media, again, like I've said before, I've written reviews for IGN, I've written reviews for other outlets, including Playboy, including The Coalition, Real Taco Gamer. I actually have another editorial coming out in Nintendo Switch Player Magazine very soon. I've talked about that in a couple of my other vlogs recently. But as someone that's gone through the process on both sides of this, both on YouTube and writing out stuff here and there, or doing whatever else, it's just amazing to me that nobody really wants to come together to work together, to actually really start up a conversation, that it always has to be mudslinging on both sides. We really need to outgrow this as a community, especially on the new media side of stuff, but even on the old media side of stuff, again, because everybody's just on two opposing extremes, and it's just stupid to me. And we're not going to grow as an industry, we're not going to become something even greater and really take our entertainment medium to the utmost craziest, awesome part it could be if we're getting so caught up on these menial and inane discrepancies and these inane kind of like conflicts. It's just dumb. Again, so with that being said, I know I might be repeating myself a little bit. I just wanted to throw this out there because after seeing Dunkey's video, I felt like it was very disingenuous. I felt like it was very unfair in the way that it presented a lot of stuff. Again, like I'm looking at some of my points now that I didn't even really get to touch on. You know, stuff about again, I talked about some of the stuff about game journalists being paid off, which again, we should really get over this. Like that's been thrown around for the last couple of years, and it's stupid. There's no evidence of people actually getting paid off, and especially at some of the bigger outlets, but it seems to be a reason that everybody comes back to whenever they disagree with something. It's stupid. But again, some of the other stuff, here's another thing, and this is where I'll kind of like end my point off besides what I talked about. The whole advertising thing that everybody goes back to with some of the websites, as someone that has done stuff for IGN and has actually talked with people there, including also talking to people at Kotaku, because I feel like everybody gives Steven Totillo, the editor-in-chief of Kotaku, so much nonsense for a lot of different things all over the place, especially because they were originally with Gawker. Advertising of a game has nothing to do with editorial. Just because there's advertisements on their website doesn't mean necessarily that all of a sudden that the review that they're writing is compromised, because they're two totally separate different departments. Not only do they have to deal with that because of the FTC, but also within their own internal group, there's a lot of different ethics policies that prevent the two parts of that company, or the two sides, those two departments, really working together in order to put out quote-unquote good coverage of the games that are being advertised on the website. Everybody goes back to this because all of a sudden, because there's ads of Call of Duty on IGN, and they have an IGN review that just happens to be like an 8.5 or a 9.0 out of 10, like that, automatically people are trying to connect the dots, saying that, oh, they're giving this game a good score because they want to stay good with the advertising dollars and all this other crazy stuff, when that is definitely not the case. Everybody keeps saying that, that's actually in the industry that has been around stuff like that, that's actually said, like, listen, that is not the case whatsoever, and nobody wants to listen to them. No, and it's not just the people from those outlets, it's all over the place that have gone to different outlets that might even be outside of the industry on top of that. Look at Colin Moriarty's vlogs, all the times that he's actually talked about that. And he left IGN after 8 to 9 years working over there, and he never once experienced something like that. That's a guy that actually was the senior editor of the PlayStation content over at IGN. And he's even been saying that, and nobody's listening to us like that. But, again, I know I'm going long. I know this has been kind of dragging on a little bit, but those are the types of things that I just wanted to throw out there. I just put my 2 cents into the ether and actually give you guys a different perspective on all the stuff that's being talked about right now. I think that a lot of people need to stop taking pop shots at some of the bigger outlets just because, especially just for views or just for attention and just for capitalizing on the fad. I think it's stupid. But either way, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Whether you're a Video Game Dunkey fan or not, you know, just put it in the comment section below. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Don't forget to leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel for all my videos. Again, my vlogs, all my gaming related coverage, and a bunch of other cool stuff that I have here on the channel right now. So again, hopefully we get a good discussion going. Hopefully I give you guys some good food for thought, and I will talk to you guys again very soon. Peace out. Stay epic, everybody.